17-year-old Justine Vanderschoot had her whole future ahead of her. She had a loving family, a bright smile that could light up a room, and dreams that reached far beyond her small town in California. But all of that would be stolen from her by someone she thought she could trust. To understand what happened, we have to go back. Before the news reports, before the search parties, before the desperate pleas for help. Back to when Justine was just a normal teenage girl living a normal teenage life. A life that was about to take a dark turn. Welcome to True Crime Stories videos. I welcome you, my viewers, and most especially my subscribers, for your support as we keep improving and bringing you daily told and untold true crime stories. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Justine was like any other 17-year-old. She loved music, hanging out with her friends, and spending time with her family. She had a warm heart and a kind soul, the kind of person who made people feel safe. And she was in love. Her boyfriend, Daniel Bessemer, was 2 years older. To the outside world, they were just another young couple. But behind closed doors, things were different. Daniel wasn't just in love with Justine. He was obsessed with her, watching her, controlling her. And Justine, she didn't see the danger. She thought it was love. She thought he just cared too much. She had no idea she was dating a monster. On September 1, 2003, Justine walked out of her house, and she was never seen alive again. Her family expected her to come home that night. She didn't. At first they thought maybe she was just out late. Maybe she lost track of time. But as the hours passed, their worry turned into fear. This wasn't like Justine. She always called. She always came home. Something was wrong. Her parents called her phone. No answer. They called her friends. No one had seen her. She was just gone. The sun rose the next morning, but there was no sign of Justine. Panic set in. The family started searching. They went to all her favorite places, called everyone they knew. But it was like she had disappeared into thin air. And then, Daniel showed up. He told Justine's parents he was just as worried as they were. That he had no idea where she was. That he loved her and wanted her back. He even helped put up missing posters, his face filled with fake concern. But Daniel wasn't worried. He wasn't scared. Because he knew exactly where Justine was. 4 days the search continued. Flyers went up. The community came together, searching for the missing girl. People whispered, rumors spread. Had she run away? Had someone taken her? The questions swirled, but no one knew the truth. Except for 2 people, Daniel Bessemer and his best friend, Brandon Fernandez. And as the days passed, cracks started to form. Daniel wasn't acting like a heartbroken boyfriend. He wasn't crying. He wasn't desperate. He was nervous. And soon people started to notice. Detectives brought him in for questioning. He told them he had nothing to do with it. That he and Justine were happy. That he had no reason to hurt her. But the truth was about to come out. And when it did, it would be more horrifying than anyone could have ever imagined. Because Justine hadn't just vanished. She had been taken, strangled, and buried alive. And soon, the whole world would know the sickening truth about what Daniel had done. The night Justine was buried alive, the world didn't stop. The stars still shined. The wind still moved through the trees. Somewhere, people laughed, lived, breathed, completely unaware that beneath the dirt, beneath the silence, a girl was taking her last breath. And the ones who put her there? They went home. They cleaned up. And by morning, they were just 2 normal boys, walking through a normal day as if they hadn't just murdered someone they once called a friend. Daniel woke up the next morning, stretched, yawned, went downstairs, and ate breakfast like it was just another day. Brandon sat at the table with his family, pretending to listen as his mother talked about work, as his father flipped through the newspaper, as his little brother laughed about something on TV. Neither of them spoke about the night before. Because in their minds, it was over. There was no body. No evidence. No proof. Justine was gone. And as long as they kept their mouths shut, no one would ever find her. So they went back to their lives. Daniel smiled at Justine's parents when he saw them in town. Told them he missed her. That he hoped she was safe. Brandon shook hands with the volunteers handing out flyers. Stood beside Justine's sister at a candlelight vigil. Wiped away fake tears as he whispered, "I just want her to come home." It was all a game. A performance. And for weeks, they played their roles perfectly. But beneath the surface something was shifting. The world kept searching. Justine's family never gave up. The police weren't fooled. And the grave was waiting. The days turned to weeks. 42 nights came and went. The leaves changed. The air grew colder. Halloween decorations appeared on porches. The world moved on. But deep in the woods, untouched, undisturbed, Justine lay beneath the earth, her body hidden beneath the weight of silence. For 42 days, the wind whispered through the trees above her. Rain soaked the ground. The world existed, and she was no longer part of it. Her parents didn't know. Her sister didn't know. They still held on to hope, still searched every street, knocked on every door, pleaded for answers. And all the while, Daniel and Brandon walked among them, their hands clean, their secrets buried. But secrets don't stay buried forever. And when the truth came out, it would shatter everything. When Daniel and Brandon broke, they broke completely. They gave the police everything. Every detail. Every movement. And then, they told them where to find her. A remote area. A dirt road no one traveled. A place forgotten by time. Officers moved quickly. Sirens cut through the air. Tires kicked up dust. The weight of what they were about to uncover pressed heavy on their chests. They arrived at the site, stepping out into the cold air, their breath visible in the fading light. Silence. And then, the digging began. Shovels hit the earth. Officers worked methodically, pushing away layers of dirt, hands steady, faces grim. Inch by inch. Closer. Closer. And then, a smell. A smell that wrapped around them, thick, suffocating, unmistakable. The smell of death. Then a glimpse. Fabric. A piece of clothing, dull and faded beneath the dirt. Hands shook. Hearts pounded. Radios crackled with urgency. They dug faster now, the weight of reality pressing in. And then, they saw her. They uncovered her face first. Eyes closed. Lips parted. A final expression frozen in time. The dirt had settled into every crease, every strand of hair. Her fingers were curled as if in one last attempt to claw her way free. But she never made it. Her body had been waiting for this moment. Waiting to be found. Waiting for the truth to come crashing down. The officers stared in silence. A heaviness filled the air, thick and suffocating. One of them turned away, blinking back the burn of tears. Another whispered a curse under his breath, his jaw clenched so tight it ached. And then, the radio crackled. We found her. Back at the station, Justine's parents were waiting. They saw the look on the officer's face before he even spoke. And in that instant, they knew. The search was over. Justine was never coming home. The truth was out. The search was over. But for Justine's family, the nightmare was just beginning. The girl they loved was gone. Buried. Stolen from them in the cruelest way imaginable. And the ones who took her? The ones who looked them in the eyes, helped them hang flyers, stood beside them at vigils. They were still breathing. Now it was time for justice. The courtroom was silent. Rows of people filled the benches. Family, friends, reporters, strangers who had followed the case, all waiting to hear the fate of two young men who had done the unthinkable. Daniel Bessemer sat still, hands folded in his lap, expression blank. No remorse. No emotion. As if the weight of what he'd done had never touched him. Brandon Fernandez beside him, shifting in his seat, eyes darting around the room. Nervous. But not broken. Not yet. The judge's gavel struck. The trial had begun. One by one Justine's family took the stand. Her mother gripped the railing, knuckles white, voice shaking. But she didn't cry. Not yet. She wanted them to hear her words, feel every syllable like a knife to the heart. She was my baby. My firstborn. I will never see her smile again. I will never hear her voice again. And for what? Because he was jealous? Because he wanted control? Her father's turn. He cleared his throat, stared directly at Daniel, unblinking. You took my daughter from me. You buried her like she was nothing. You let us search, let us beg for answers, knowing she was beneath the dirt the whole time. I hope you never sleep another peaceful night for as long as you live. And then, Justine's little sister. Barely able to reach the microphone. A child forced to understand loss in a way no child ever should. I don't have a sister anymore. She used to braid my hair. She used to tell me bedtime stories. She used to tell me she would always be there for me. But she's not here. Because you killed her. The courtroom was silent. Daniel didn't flinch. Brandon looked down. But their silence didn't matter. Because justice was coming. The judge's voice was steady. Final. Daniel Bessemer, you are sentenced to 25 years to life for the murder of Justine Vanderschoot. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Justine's mother squeezed her husband's hand, her breath shallow, like she had been holding it for days. But it wasn't enough. Nothing would ever be enough. Brandon Fernandez, you are sentenced to 15 years to life for your role in the crime. Brandon swallowed hard. This was real now. No way out. No second chances. Daniel? He didn't react. Not a single muscle moved. It was done. But for Justine's family, this wasn't over. The courtroom doors closed. The sentences were given. Justice, if you could call it that, was served. But Justine was still gone. Her family walked out of that courthouse with heavy hearts, knowing the men who killed her would sleep behind bars. But no sentence could undo what was done. No prison cell could bring her back. The world moved on. But for them? Life had split into two halves, before Justine, and after. The house was quieter now. Her room stayed the same. The bed still neatly made, the photos still pinned to the corkboard, her favorite hoodie still draped over the chair. But Justine wasn't there. Her mother still set a place for her at the table even though no one sat in it. Her father found himself staring at the driveway some nights, expecting to hear the familiar sound of her car pulling in. But it never came. Her little sister whispered, "Good night," to an empty room, hoping maybe somehow Justine could still hear her. The house was full of her presence, and at the same time unbearably empty. While Justine's family mourned, the ones who took her life sat behind cold concrete walls. Daniel Bessemer, once cocky, once in control, now just another inmate in an orange jumpsuit. No more freedom. No more pretending. No more power. Brandon Fernandez, once his loyal follower, now alone. No one to hide behind. No one to whisper orders in his ear. Just silence. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into years. The outside world kept going. But for them, time had stopped. Daniel never showed remorse. Never admitted he was sorry. He sat through parole hearings like he was checking off a list, saying the right words but never meaning them. Brandon tried. He spoke about regret. About guilt. About the nightmares. But Justine's family didn't believe it. How could they? He helped bury their daughter alive. Sorry wasn't enough. Both men knew one thing. When the time came when they had served enough years, they would try to walk free. Justine's family had lost her once. They refused to lose her again. When the first parole hearing approached, they were ready. Ready to fight. Ready to make sure the ones who stole Justine's life stayed exactly where they belonged, behind bars. Her mother stood before the board, voice steady, eyes fierce. "My daughter took her last breath in a shallow grave, gasping for air. She will never get a second chance. And neither should they." Her father spoke next, his grief hardened into determination. "They didn't just kill Justine. They tortured her. They made her suffer in ways no human being should. Do not let them walk free." Letter after letter. Statement after statement. The community. Friends. Strangers who had never met Justine but felt her story deep in their bones. They all had the same message: do not let them. And when the board made its decision, Justine's family let out a breath they had been holding for years. Parole denied. But they knew this fight wasn't over. There would be more hearings. More chances for Daniel and Brandon to try and convince the world they had changed. And Justine's family would be there every time, standing in that room, making sure no one ever forgot what was taken from them. Because Justine didn't get to grow old. She didn't get to have a future. And as long as her family had breath in their lungs, they would make sure her killers never got to steal back theirs.